welcome back to the podcast series brought by ConnectPOS. I'm Trang, going to be the host for today. In our episode today, we'll mainly share about all the trendy insight related to the pop-up concept. Our episode today will be the short-term retail to earn long-term benefit. Joining with me today, we have CEO and founders of Spacewise, Mr. Chalid, who's going to share all his expertise when coming to solution for landlords rent a location on how to work on the pop-up concept. So Spacewise is one of the top SaaS solution for landlords for booking platform for short-term retail space. So I think for today, he will mainly share his expertise in that scope. And for ConnectPOS side, we're mainly sharing about technology involvement to the omnichannels and also how to leverage the pop-up concept. So Chalid, can you give the audience a bit of introduction?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me, Tran. I'm the founder and CEO of Spacewise. We offer a booking solution for retail landlords on one side, but also we operate popupshops.com, which is the biggest marketplace for short-term retail space and promotional space. And so we're very excited to be part of this podcast series.
So I have heard a lot about Spacewise with all the good work when coming to the solution for landlords on how to rent and short-term retail for the pop-up. So I think it would be great if you can share with me how pop-up concept going to be beneficial for retailers, and of course a bit of a hint if it's going to involve it to who invented the pop-up concept. So would you share with me?
Yeah, that's a good question. There is not a single inventor that we could point out or someone that was like the pioneer, but it basically pop-ups have their roots in traditional markets, and markets go back thousands of years theoretically, right? But the modern day pop-up is attributed to basically mainly US brands in the beginning in LA and New York starting to use temporary spaces and temporary like even containers on the beach and so on. So the modern day pop-up basically is attributed to US brands, and that's roughly 20 years ago now. So by now I think the pop-up has so many different shapes and forms that we could even start to identify who did what concept first, kind of.
Yeah, right now you guys gonna be the custom tailor for all the concept that the client want. So can you give me a good example of some brand that using the pop-up concepts right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the interesting thing is here really that you can see that a lot of non-traditional retailers use pop-ups because also the reasons why they use these pop-ups are different. But when you look across the landscape, you have companies like Samsung when they introduce a new product. You have Louis Vuitton, who normally does not do any promotions, but whenever they have collaborations, for example, with Supreme, which is a US streetwear brand, they did pop-ups and they were wildly successful. They really generated lines, I don't know, longer than I think most other brands could achieve. And then, of course, you have also traditional luxury brands like Gucci or Prada that would use pop-ups in the Hamptons, in Saint-Tropez during summer. So the spectrum is quite wide in terms of what brands are using pop-ups.
So that's actually a very large scale of brand, very good, well-known brand, and having a long history that's using pop-up concept. And it seems like there is no limitation or any scope that pop-up concept would reduce. So it would be great if you can walk the audience through the pop-up concept, introduce them, what the pop-up concept, what it's all about, why all the big brands are using pop-up concept like that.
Yeah, I think it's important to see that when we talk about the pop-up, the traditional understanding was about sales. But in reality, a pop-up is much more than just sales. It's really based on the goal that the brand has. And this goal might not be focused on sales directly. It might be focused on building loyalty, on providing a brand experience, on introducing a new product and educating consumers on that product. So that's why it's more generally basically a physical touch point. And the goal for that physical touch point might be anywhere along the whole customer journey. It might be just education, it might be the actual sale, and it might be after sales services.
So the pop concept, like they're saying that is similar to fast, like a very fast retailing. So it's similar to what you mentioned, right? A fast one, but it's bringing a lot of beneficial for the clients.
Exactly. So I think another reason that we didn't touch upon for pop-ups and flexible retail is that a lot of brands are following what the consumer wants, and the consumer at the moment, and I think also going forward, always wants to be entertained, always wants something new. So the traditional way of retailing, of signing a 10-year lease, a 10 or even 20-year lease, doesn't work anymore. And because brands will be like, okay, if I choose this location and I choose it for 20 years, who's going to guarantee me that in 20 years this is even basically the right location? Because how cities develop, I might be stuck at a location that is totally uncool, where I have not my right target demographics and so on. So that's the other aspect, driven by the consumer, where brands say, okay, I always need to show something new, need to be flexible, I need to be able to react to what consumers want. And so that's driving also basically this flash retailing or pop-ups. And on top of that, I think the exciting thing, especially also for landlords, that what we keep on saying is that by them providing a pop-up space, they open up their spaces to many more, also smaller brands. Because before, investing in a retail location would mean investing a lot of money. So you would have to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions to build that space out. And with a ready-to-use pop-up space, you're increasing your demand potential tremendously, because many brands that were not able to afford a retail location can now afford one and can use one.
So it seems pop-up concept have variants of beneficial, like from the cost efficient, how to test out the market, how to take tiptoes in the water to see if it's suitable or not. So I think it's going to be a very great match with the Europeans situation right now. So would you mind to share with me how the pop-up store is rising in the Europe country right now?
Absolutely. I think when it comes to pop-up, it's very important to differentiate what we call a fad and what is called a trend. A trend is something that is continuously increasing and that is steady. And what we see in all European markets is that the pop-up trend is gaining traction. And since the pandemic, and especially the pandemic-related restrictions, even more brands focus on being flexible, staying agile, and starting to treat actually physical locations the same way they treat online channels. So they want to have a better understanding about the location, who's passing by that location, what's my footfall potential, sales potential. And that's also reflected in, for example, that across the board, lease durations have decreased massively. So when we look at, for example, the UK market, the average lease in the UK market is not longer than 2 to 3 years. Meanwhile, a couple of years back, it was more than 5 years. And so there you can see that this lease duration is decreasing because brands are not committing anymore to longer term leases. And that, of course, also you can see, for example, in statistics that in markets where landlords are not adapting to that new concept, we have higher vacancy. So these spaces just sit empty. If the landlord is insisting on getting a 10 years lease contract signed, they might not be able to find a tenant.
Yeah, so I think that is correctly, because like per I know, with all the pandemic situation right now, to actually afford a location for like longer term, and they're actually not sure of the benefit, how they would run it, and the revenue that they would take from the sales. is to maintain those. It's going to be a very hard one. So definitely pop-up concept is something to them to take discovery the market, to see their operation and make it flexible and changing, follow the client need and demand. Also with the citizenizations, the movement of the city. So I think that is a great point that you had it up. So for fit with multiple business, because pop-up concept is not limited when coming to the industry or the client type of the brand name or even the location. So would you think that the pop-up concept have transferred it into different model? What will be the main model that you think like the pop-up concept is heading right now? All the type of model of pop-up concept right now having. Would you have that in mind?
I think of course, you might see in the market, and we can already see that for example, when it comes to fashion or also beauty, there you have certain models that are more common. So for fashion, the focus on sale or sales in general is prevalent. When it comes to beauty, it's also sales, but it's also focusing on providing a way to explore products, to try out products, to touch products. But otherwise, it depends, I think, on the vertical and the retail industry. So, for example, when we then move away from more traditional retail into cars, there that someone goes in a car showroom and buys the car on the spot is unusual. So the pop-up there, the most common goal for a car pop-up is to be a showroom, to let people explore the car, touch the car, smell the car even. But then, when you look into what concepts exist, like what we touched upon before, it's very wide, really depending on the goal, what might be a concept that the brand adopts. And what we mentioned before, for example, Louis Vuitton's cooperation with Supreme, their goal was not sales, because they even limited the number of people allowed in the shop to just 5, which was actually also one of the reasons why they had these kind of long lines, because they artificially created these lines. And so for them, the goal was to create buzz. And they were highly successful, because basically every major newspaper in every market they launched as a pop-up covered these pop-ups. Because if you would go in a downtown location and you would see hundreds of meters or even longer than that lines, everyone would ask, what's happening here? What's going on? And so, like I said, even though you could consider Louis Vuitton fashion or luxury fashion, their goal in this case was not sales, although I said before, sales might be the most dominant concept when it comes to fashion. This variety in concepts, from sale to brand experience to product demonstration to general promotion to even a concept shop where I'm trying out the location or I'm trying out a new product, this is very wide. And I think that makes also, for example, our business very exciting, because we always see something new.
Like, just imagine one day you head down the street and you see like Louis Vuitton, whereas Supreme, everyone lines up and you don't know what happened. It's kind of excited, and you would want to make a quick tweet or Instagram story or Facebook update on it. So it's a really good channel for PR and marketing effort, and the brand actually get more engagement with their customer. Am I correct?
Exactly. And so there, I think a very important aspect is that the brand is really putting a lot of thought into what's their goal for their pop-up. Because it might not be sales. I mean, many brands might resort immediately to we need to sell as much as possible. But maybe there is something in there when they launch a pop-up that might lead to more sales afterwards, indirectly, but they can create much more buzz if they do something else. I mean, again, if we are touching up on a beauty brand, if they have a spokesperson, for example, or an influencer that they can bring into that shop, they might create a huge buzz, but they might not directly sell as much to finance a very good location. Just remembered one example, which is Rent a Runway. They use pop-ups just for their clients or their customers to return the gowns that they have borrowed or that they have rented, because they realized that their customers were not comfortable putting these expensive dresses and gowns into a little basic cardboard box and sending them back just emotionally somehow. So what they did is, okay, along this journey to return these expensive gowns, we're going to have pop-up locations where basically, and some of these pop-ups became permanent locations afterwards because they realized, okay, this is really where a physical space adds value. So just to attribute again to the limitlessness, basically, when it comes to pop-up concept.
So it seems pop-up concept is not like just driving for sales revenue or just the brand awareness. It's mainly about the brand who know their goal and also know what will be the beneficial for their clients. So it seems like the pop-up concept going to be a very wonderful investment for any brand. But to start to do that invest, a lot of retailers going to be struggle. So what would you have in mind when coming to pinpoint for the retailers that are going to start their own pop-up concept? Because I believe it's going to be quite challenging for them to know where to start, right?
It depends a bit on their experience level. So if someone has never done any physical retail, they might want to go for a let's say smaller budget initially, like in an MVP approach to see, okay, what are the things that I need to consider, or what are some of the challenges that I might encounter, because there are many things as a newbie that I might not think about. And of course, it's good to use sources, for example, like this podcast, to educate myself to then not run into major problems. But I think when it comes to investment, there are now offers out there where, for example, I can use a so-called plug and play space. So a traditional retail space would normally come as a concrete shell. And as a tenant, I need to build in the floor, the walls, the lights, the AC, etc. And so that's not feasible, right? And especially for a pop-up, which is limited in time, it's not feasible. So I want to make sure that I find a plug and play space, which might even come with furniture. I think that's the perfect starter location where I have furniture as well. This might limit me a bit in terms of the appearance of my pop-up, but it helps me tremendously in simplifying my organization, because I can just bring my products or bring my setup that I will have in the pop-up and I'm good to go. I don't need to think about a lot of things like, what floor, what furniture I might have. So especially for a smaller brand, they want to go for such a plug and play space. But then with more experience, a brand, of course, they might, and big brands, they do that. They even go and they use a concrete space, basically, that they build out for a pop-up. But of course, they have also different budgets. So let's say Louis Vuitton that we mentioned before, they have budgets in the millions for a pop-up. So there it really depends on, what experience do I have and what's the budget I have. But I think compared to a long-term location, my investment is much lower. So it's probably just 10% of what I would have to invest if I have a long-term location.
Yeah. So it seems that the investment for pop-up concept is very, very beneficial in financial way if the brand know their goal and know how to set up and how to roll out, right? So, okay, so I believe so even they have already find the perfect spot, like you just recommended, like the one who have furniture already, very cost efficient, or the places is like very costly, but the returning for investment is very high, then it is very worthy for the clients. So, but I believe that like after having a right spot like that, the continuous pain point that they would have is how to set up, like set up from the furniture, set up to the concept, make design, and paying for any accommodation related. So based on all of that, what would you think gonna be another pain point for them, for the cost of staff or anything?
Yeah, I think when operating a retail shop, aside from finding the right location, is really having the right staff. And I think some businesses underestimate it, but when you look at the budget for a shop, including everything, so merchandise, etc., your average rent only makes about somewhere between 10 to 20% of the overall costs, but your staff is normally over 20%. So staff is the biggest cost factor. So if someone can be in the shop, let's say an entrepreneur that has their own online shop and they want to now try a pop-up, and they have the chance to work from that pop-up when they also do, for example, the whole handling of the online orders, that's perfect. Because otherwise, for example, if you have a pop-up in a shopping center, there are fixed hours. And these fixed hours, they might be 10, 12 hours a day. And to deliver that with a team, that's a cost factor that one should not underestimate.
Yeah, so I believe that you would have some recommend for them. So in the case that the cost for operation, cost for merchandise, cost for employees and staff are really high like that, then the client, the merchant, they should consider to lower the cost for the product concept, like the location that they're going to hire, or they should find the best location that more beneficial cost for them, right?
Yeah, I think some of the aspects are really choose the location not solely based on the number of people that you expect passing by, but on the number of relevant customers passing by. So if you are, let's say, a jewelry brand, you might only need 5 customers per day, because if your average product price is a couple $100, you might be good in terms of your business case when you make five sales. But if you have a product that costs only a couple dollars, you might be really reliant on having a very high number of people passing by.
Right.
Sorry?
You mean the high traffic of the location?
Exactly. So exactly, when I talk about footfall or foot traffic, then very often, basically people think just about the sheer number of people passing by. But let's say if I have an expensive brand where I know my main customer is 50 years and above, and I choose a location next to a university where I might have 50,000 people passing by, but 49,000 out of these are students that cannot afford any of my products, then this location doesn't make sense, even if on paper it looks great that they have 50,000 basically people passing by. And so that's why when choosing a location, choose it based on the relevant target group that is passing by there. And then also, of course, look at the budget. And that's what then the approach becomes very similar to an online campaign or to an online marketing campaign, where I check, okay, if I launch a campaign on Facebook, Facebook tells me, okay, how many people based on my profile that I put in can I reach with this budget? And a brand should achieve to do the same, that they say, okay, we choose this location, we know the relevant traffic must be around that number, and then I have to apply so-called capture and conversion rate, where I say, okay, how many people are reasonably going to enter my shop or enter my space, and how many people might buy something if my business case is based on sales. If it's based on marketing, I might just say, okay, the number of people visiting or interacting with my product has a certain value. So knowing the value of a customer or the value of a sale is tremendously important for physical retail the same way. So when we talk about customer acquisition costs or customer value, we couldn't say lifetime value yet, but customer value, I think that's a very important aspect aside from choosing the pure location, knowing these basics as well.
So the location just be a point, right? And the rest gonna be the operation and knowing your customer, knowing your goal, and have the experience for maintaining a pop-up. So, okay.
Exactly.
Wonderful. So I think I have a bit insight on this too. So actually that related to operation, that every brand needs to know how to start the merchandise, how to take their product from their warehouse or from the different store and bring it to their pop-up concept. So I think they should definitely consider to have a well-managed of all that categorized, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think exactly this transition for someone, for example, operating an online shop, being used to now very good tools out there, how to manage that shop. They need to really think hard. How do I transition that into a physical location when it comes to different aspects that I might have with my shop? So in that regard, in your experience and with your customers, how do they achieve this seamlessness, basically, if we want to call it this way, that they have, for example, the inventory available, or that they have the newest product description available? So if I need to train my staff in the shop and things like that, how does a modern brand achieve that?
Yeah, so I think that is actually a very good question because, well, every brand, when they start to do a pop-up concept, then they have to think of how do they bring their product to the store and how would they are making pricing and making promotion to heading toward the sales and also the marketing effort. So in the case of the clients, the brand, they are heading toward for sales and revenue, then they need to make sure that their product are aligned, are actually ready to be sold. And of course, they need to have the alignment between their online site and the physical location, like how many the quantity available, how to make sales, which pricing would be the best, and how would they manage all the inventory amount that they have buy and sell during the pop-up concept. So all of that need to be aware. But in the case that they are more driven in the marketing effort, they need to have record of the customer data, which could be CTP, customer loyalty, voucher, gift card, how to engage the clients with their pop-up concept. So I think a good system that operated to making all the transaction, all the sales and inventory management and customer management during the pop-up concept gonna be a very necessary one for every brand need to have. So I think that is the idea that I would have for running the pop-up concept to make it more beneficial. Of course, all of that will enhance the customer journey, the omnichannels, the clients which you have. So it's more flexibility, more engagement, as you say earlier. It's mainly about the customer touch point and the experience of them too.
Yeah, then like what are some of the benefits, for example, some of your customers you have seen already when they were transitioning into physical space? We mentioned a couple, let's say, theoretical concepts, a couple example, but specifically your audience, your customers, what benefits have they reaped basically from going into physical spaces?
Mm-hmm. So I think I can example one of our clients are Trinity London. They are having their businesses in makeup industry, and they're also using pop-up concept to start to run out to the client to make a new touch point, new experience point for their client to try out new item, new collection. So Trinity London's had run a lot of pop-up during their springtime on the mall and in some events, and they are showing new product every time. So they actually require us to be the one who keeping up with their inventory flow because there could be a very high traffic during the sales there. So they need to have all the inventory ready to make a shipment or to sell to the clients and update that for manage. And they have to also record all of the customer database during that day. So they would have a marketing effort like marketing email, marketing voucher, gift card sent out to the clients. So I think that is some beneficial of the business will take all the physical touch point. So you engage more with the clients, you make more sale, and you have more marketing effort during the sales.
Okay, that's interesting. Because like what we said before, it might really differentiate from brand to brand, depending on their goal, how they utilize a physical location. So it's interesting to see that Treaty London is also focused a lot on sales because they have seen, okay, that their customers are fast deciders and they're not just come to try it out, but they buy it immediately. And so I think that's great that they can then utilize a physical space right away to generate sales, which I think is still a big benefit.
So after having the location set up, what will be the advice from you to them to start to running their physical store or the pop-up store?
I think it's aside from things that the traditional retail business in the past also had to consider, like, do I have the right permits if I'm selling certain products that might require a permit? Do I have the right staff? Am I following the right opening hours when I'm in the shopping center? Because if I don't, I will break the lease, basically. I think aside from all these points, the most important aspect is to have the right technological setup in place. So the right software. So I have all the information that I need. I can offer the relevant payment methods. Because I mean, in year 2020, if a shop says I cannot process credit card payments, it's going to break their business, right? It's going to break their business. And it still exists sometimes. And these are some of the things that a brand cannot afford anymore. So having this right setup is really crucial. And so when it comes to that, actually, I have a question for you. Having this kind of software in place, what are some of the other operational aspects that a brand should consider or should make sure that they give it enough?
So I think, yes, you have totally correct when coming to retails. And if the brand cannot process the payment or have the right system to run the business, and it's going to be a pain point for them. So it's going to be very harsh. So the client came to the store and they don't know how to buy the product. They cannot find the product. They will not happy, of course, with their experience. And even if they still purchase something, then they cannot process the payment. They cannot make a transaction, and they cannot know that if they purchase this, then can they return it or they can have a shipment after this, and where would they find this product again, where they can find this brand again. So our system, ConnectPOS, actually going to be the solution for that. So bring out all the technologies into the operation for retailers. So we recommend that the client would have the inventory management to have all their product ready every time they open up the store. So they would know how many they need to have in store, which one is out of stock, which should then consider to have purchase order more of those items to make sure the clients have made experience. And it will be more sales driven, of course, because every time the client came, the product is ready, they see that online, and when they come to the store, they just need to experience it and make it like a physical touch to it and start to make a decision and make a checkout. Then it will be much easier and, of course, quicker process to generate sales. So I think for all the physical store, they should, after they have the process of setting up, then they should consider to set up a technology to make the customer journey and the operation is much more convenient and smoother and seamless. So yeah, that is what I have in mind when coming to physical store operation and pop-up concept operation too.
Yeah, that reminds me just of a case study I read the other day where a young online fashion brand focused on sleepwear, actually, they shared their experience with their pop-up, and they said that the checkout time compared to last year's pop-up when they did the first one, they were able to decrease it with the right software from over 2 minutes to just 10 seconds. So imagine, instead of kind of wasting time on transacting through, I don't know, a more cumbersome tool and wasting time on that, instead you.
Yeah, because if they're having like for example, you give them a very good space, a very beneficial one with high traffic. A lot of people walk through that, but they cannot purchase with all of that flow, and it's going to be a really bit harsh. So I think the audience would be very keen on to hear some of the case study like that, like a very wonderful case study of Spacewise that provide the solution for giving the pop-up model or a physical store similar to that. Can you give some examples so the audience would understand more how it's already works?
Yeah, absolutely. So since we covered earlier that a pop-up might have many different forms or many different concepts and goals, some of the case studies that I can share are, for example, for a corporate brand or a more, let's say, established brand, Polestar, which is an electric car brand, and they do pop-ups very extensively across all markets they are in. And especially when they launch a new model, a new car model, and they want to introduce new features and so on. This is something, a car purchase is something very emotional as well, aside from the technicalities. And so they have seen tremendous success in launching these pop-ups with the goal to generate leads and test drives. So their goal is not that someone shows up and pays, I don't know, $60,000 for a car right on the spot, but instead their goal is for people to come, experience, touch the car, maybe ideally set up a test drive. So they already commit basically. So that's the next stage. And that's their conversion element that they look at, the number of test drives generated. And after the test drive, that's then really where basically the sales associate, the shop associate, job is to really make the sale. But the pop-up location is basically just to generate test drives. Then when we move into, let's say, more mass products, we have also had the pleasure of working with the pop star Harry Styles and his new beauty line, basically, which is also very focused on a younger audience. But nevertheless, they have seen, okay, this younger audience also likes Instagrammable locations, likes to explore and touch the products. So they have also launched several pop-ups, one with us in Berlin, near Alexander Square, a very good location, very central location. And of course, their sales have been one aspect, but on the other hand, it's also about generating buzz. It's about being covered in newspapers and so on. And basically, that's also something they have achieved. So from their pop-ups they have made in London or in Berlin or other locations, they were always covered in fashion media, but also even in more mainstream media. And then a third example is more of a startup brand, is actually a Swiss shoe brand, GNL. It was started by the inventor of the On sole. I don't know if you have heard about the Swiss running shoe brand called On, O-N. They are now also listed on the New York Stock Exchange. So they're very big. And so the inventor of this initial On shoe, he has launched another brand called GNL. And they also sell a lot online, but they have started to launch pop-ups and also very successfully. And the interesting thing there is really that they have played basically the PR playbook very well, always ahead of their pop-ups. So they made sure to promote the pop-up properly by using, for example, their founders' history and story, working with On, which is now a multi-billion-dollar business. Roger Federer is a shareholder in On, etc. So they use that story of the founder of GNL to make sure that they get coverage in the media ahead of a pop-up. And so when they actually launched in the pop-up, they had tremendous success also in selling. So there for them, aside from making the brand more known, it was really the goal to make these pop-ups self-sufficient so that they not only break even, but they actually make a profit. And that's also what they achieved. And so these three examples, so Polestar, big established brand, Harry Styles, new, cool, upcoming brand, but with a lot of audience already. And then GNL, really start a brand that has to really build up the audience, has to make people known about their products and about the quality of their products. So these are just some of the examples, but of course there are many out there. And we have also, just when it comes to the sheer number of pop-ups, there has been just a study out a couple of weeks ago that basically over 40% of European online brands expect to do pop-ups in the next 2 years. So that also shows you how the demand side in terms of new brands are looking at pop-ups, that they have high expectations. And in the current marketing environment also, that they see this really as something that they should do or have to do even to further build their brand and be successful in the long term as a brand.
So all of the case study we would have is showing that power concept really a driving one. And when you mix the power concept with the omnichannel journey across all the touch points of the brand, is going to make more revenue driven. Of course, over 58% of all the brand that using new way to approach clients also engage with omnichannel have shown that they are engaging more revenue in sales, more interact with the client would recognize them much better. And in the future way, the clients will feel that that brand really understand them and it's not getting any boring. So they keep trying to come back to that brand to experience more, to looking forward more activities. So I think either way, if the merchant, they know how to use the pop-up concept as a new campaign, new channel, and they also gonna combine it with the existing omnichannel, then they're gonna be definitely be a really wonderful player during this time, very standout. Before we come to the end of this podcast, do you have any sum up or recommendation to the brand that's going to make pop-up concept in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. But of course, I am biased. So, for example, when now people are talking a lot about metaverse, I always talk about IRL, in real life. So my summary and advice would be to brands, even very new upcoming brands, that they embrace the physical touch point to a customer and really see, okay, where can they add value in the customer journey by providing a physical touch point. And I would say in all businesses, there is additional value. It might be in sales, it might be in after-sales service, it might be in being able to explore a product, but to really treat this physical channel the same way as an online channel. So making a business case, making sure that they stay within budget, that it's a viable endeavor, and it's not just something, let's do this for fun, but it's really, it has to be based on a good business case. And to do this in an MVP approach. So to be prepared to invest some money and maybe not make the return that they expected, but at the same time, then adjust and try again. And so using this mindset of staying flexible, staying agile, but not neglecting the physical touch point, because that's, I think, as someone also who has been in e-commerce and online business for over 20 years, it's always easy to say, okay, I just stay online, I stay asset light. But I also had the experience with another business in the past that the physical touch point is so powerful. So even if you have an e-commerce business, don't underestimate the physical channel.
Correct. So actually, as a software that provide the link up between the online and offline, the e-commerce and the offline sales, we definitely follow your recommendation. It's all about the alignment. Like too much online, too much offline is not good. The best thing is we centralize everything and have the alignment between those channels. So we always meet up the client where the client wants. So correct.
Exactly, because this agility, it only comes if I have the right operational setup. And for that, I need the right software to do it.
Yes. So with the right software, the right technology that align everything, it will optimize the operation. So with us, then we believe that the software that match with your business will not only just engage in the clients into your brand or alignment the online and offline, but it's also going to support the management level to leverage the sales the revenues on tracking the customer. So you will be a last lasted brand that stand out during all the time of period, like even how long, the 10-year, 20-year, you're still going to stand out because you have a great database of the client, you have a great operation, you have multiple touch points and new, renew and flexibilities campaign every year. So a good brand is a brand that know to combine the online and offline channels where the client. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Good. So I think very wonderful sharing with you today, Chalid. And I really appreciate and believe that Spacewise is one of the best solution right now for, I say that, for landlords, retailers, any related to pop-up concept. So ConnectPOS will be the alignment, like a longer hand to reach out to physical store location. So I believe that we're gonna shape for the solution for the retailer in the future, so they would have the idea of the branding of for their brand to do the pop-up, new campaign, how to optimize and maintain their performance between the physical store and the online store.
Yeah, great. We look forward to that. Thank you very much for the discussion, and we look forward to further collaboration.
So very thank you for all the sharing. I believe all the case study listed above definitely gonna be a great proof to show all the brand that we should consider for product concept and omnichannel as one of the future plan or existing plan. So very thank you, Chalid from Spacewise. I believe that we're gonna have a lot more great content for more sharing and showing more expertise in this industry in the future. So very thank you everyone for listening to our podcast. And I believe that we will have a lot more retail trend and insight sharing in the future. So stay tuned for other podcasts from ConnectPOS. Thank you.